beach, and we were building mud castles. And making up stories about who was living in the...
There was a big old log half buried in the sand, and Marcy and I got out there and we were pirates and we were all kinds of stuff because I knew that was my last night of being a kid.
She got married when she was 14.
And we stayed married.
But you have stories because I think maybe kids used to maybe mature a little earlier than they do now. Or maybe because there wasn't anything to do. You didn't have TVs.
Well, when my husband and I started going together, he nearly passed out when he found out I was 14 because he thought I was 19 and a half. So there was a big difference in the way kids looked even,
well,
and the way they dressed.
And what, because you've told me y'all's big, what y'all like to do, you girls, was what, walk down the street and...
Marguerite Moore and I, we stayed pretty skinny. Because at the time they had sailors down the beach. And we would start off in the morning, we made the waterfront.
And this is before she's 14.
And then we walked all the way down to the beach by Barney Farley's old cottages. And if we didn't find some sailors or boys or somebody down there, then we made the trip down by the jetty and back around to the waterfront. And we made that trip about 3 times a day, just cruising. Except our cruising was Leather Express. But we were interested. I think they came out of Corpus, but they were young kids. Remember like the kids out at Summit in Panama? 17-year-olds.
Well, during the war there were no...
We got here after.
Well, your mom got here in 45.
There were a lot of camps here.
Anybody remembers what it was like during World War?
Well, we had the Navy and the Coast Guard here right in town.
Yeah, I know.
Well, that lends into this other question about the gun emplacements. Do any of y'all remember, you know, the soldiers?
Sure we remember them.
And our missions were knocked off and all this.
During the war,
Scary.
during the war, we had an old, I think it was a 36 Chevrolet, and I was driving it, and I was 13 years old at the time. Well, I don't know whether it was a 42 or a 36, but it was a Chevrolet. And I was driving, and these boys, the soldiers, stopped me down by the Coast Guard station, and they held their hands out, and I couldn't get across the street. I stopped, and I thought, what's going to happen to me? So I put my head out, and I said, "You don't want me, boys. I'm 13 and wear pigtails." And they got to laughing so hard, they left me alone. All the way I could think to get away from them.
Joyce, do you remember our PE teacher, Ms. Franklin?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Miss Franklin was quite interested in these guys up in the sandhills, so she marched us. Our PE was to march down what is now 11th Street, isn't that right, or 12th Street? Because they were encamped all up in those sandhills, and she would march all of us little girls down that street every single day.
Joyce and I were
At the end of 11th Street, on back this way towards the waterfront, was an army camp during World War II.
Yeah.
And I remember my dad was working at the ice plant at the time, and I remember getting in the ice truck with him and riding down 11th Street until it ran out of a road, and then it would turn very sandy, and we'd have to get in the weeds and first one thing and another. But anyhow, he'd go down there, and it was his responsibility to make sure the water was flowing down there, and so but there was quite a camp down there.
My house on Avenue C that Daddy built, that was Army barracks. He wanted it an auction or a bid or something. And I want to say it probably cost him $2,000 to build. Last week it sold for $265,000.
I'm glad you told that story because I thought that I remembered that house was built out of Army barracks. And but where is Woody? Last time I told a story, your daddy corrected me. That's not right. But anyway, I thought that I remembered him building that out of those barracks.
the water tanks that they had the water in. That's Cypress.
Oh, Daddy got that cypress, he still got it in the unit.
He's still right next to the garage, waiting for something.
But no, there were a number of different military units out here.
Well,
We
where
had
the-
a Navy unit down on the Coast Guard property down there.
I was gonna
Remember?
say, across the street from the Coast Guard station was Navy,
Okay,
right up,
out in that area. I know that.
Yeah.
Coast Guard, the Navy was
Right behind you.
right behind the Coast Guard.
Yeah.
And you had the Coast Guard, you had the Coast Auxiliary, they stayed down the beach, they had horses. Then you had the Coast Auxiliary, it was over by my house where they moved down there. You really had, not counting the damn Merchant Marines, you had quite a few guys over
you
there.
had Marines,
Merchant Marines.
Merchant Marine.
no, but you
Oh,
had Marines.
Marines that whipped them all.
Did we have Marines here at the time?
Yes.
I remember the Navy, and I remember the Army, and I remember, of course, the Coast Guard.
Yeah, those
And
bunch
we
of
had
little
Marines
houses
too
down
then,
there.
right?
They built barracks down there. Dale and I used to go in there and stay in them. We were, after it was all gone.
Yeah.
Me and Jack, we were.
Oh, yeah.
We could stay in them. We camped down that area.
Right.
Down the island, about every 10 miles, they had a barracks
Yeah, they
down
would let
there.
us go down there sometimes.
Well, does anyone here remember the time the submarine was captured out there, so to speak? I mean, the guys put their net on the submarine, and it was there. But I don't remember what happened. I just remember them coming in and telling about it. Do y'all remember?
Yeah, that submarine flew that shrimp boat to Germany with it.
No, it didn't go that far. They cut the line. That's what they did. They cut the net off so the submarine could get away.
But we did have submarines out there.
Oh, yeah.
There actually were.
Yes,
Yeah.
there were.
Okay.
And,
We had blackouts
we
too.
had blackouts.
We had blackouts all the time.
That old Worthington was
Everybody
torpedoed
had
right out
black
here
shades.
off the edge.
And our mother was one of the wardens that walked the streets at
Making sure
night.
everybody was.
And our dad he rode a bicycle. And that bicycle had quite a history. It had belonged to Billy Munsell, and Gail Borden Munsell had come here, and he had bought a lot of land, and he was the one who put in the power plant and the electricity, the telephone system and all that. And that bicycle belonged to, well, there was a pair of one for a man and one for a woman. And Dad worked at the ice plant during the time that we were having those blackouts, and he rode that bicycle, and we still have that old bike.
And when I first got down here, Aunt Bertha still kept broken glass on the windowsill. That was in case anybody tried to break in. They would get
call
cut.
through the window.
Right. But when I saw the broken glass, I was at a loss.
Well, it was right here in this church that when the end of the war came, and it was late in the afternoon, I don't remember exactly what time, but I remember that Uncle Charlie came over here and Uncle Elmo came over here and started ringing the bells. Uncle Charlie came down later.
But
Was
submarine
this at the end of the war, you mean?
A submarine was.
Yeah, I've got a picture of it.
Submarine, yes.
I've had a picture of it.
And where he was radioing his stuff, they found out later, was to a man on the bridge. We had an old-fashioned bridge in Corpus. The Bastille, I think it was called, or something like that. Yeah. And this man had a ice cream cart, and he was taking his messages there, but they caught him.
that
But-
was a spy.
They found another spy who was telling about every ship that came in. And this old spy was just an old fisherman. I don't remember what his name was. What?
Hillwood.
No, not Hillwood. This was another one. No,
Hillwood?
no,
Hillwood wasn't a spy.
no,
He was.
no, he wasn't. No, Hillwood wasn't a spy.
Out of town, he wasn't.
The one that I'm talking about was down on Padre Island, down that we call Padre Island now, and he lived there. And the men of the island would go down there fishing, and he was just a good old boy. And all of the time he was, you remember me back?
I remember hearing that.
Yeah, and all the time he was telling which ship was coming in, which one was going out. So when they caught him, the islanders just, they died practically, because here all this time he was a good old boy, and he wasn't. He was a German spy.
And he killed himself down there on the beach in his little old hut. I think it would be interesting if we had a show of hands, like how many people here were baptized in that old Catholic church?
This one?
Right, baptized. All right, how many of you made your first communion in that church?
Same ones.
How many of you were confirmed in that church? How many of you got married in that church?
Oh, you didn't get married.
And I just got 50 years. Just turned 50.
50 years old.
From this church.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
My sister Kathy and her husband, who are here, were the first to be married in the new church.
Oh,
And that was
yeah.
19 what?
You were Catholic?
63.
63. That was the first wedding.
The very first one to get married.
Well, we used to scout, go take our scout troop down there and camp down there, and we had great times out in that area. It was just a place to go and have fun. We would go down there and play games that capture the flag and first one thing then another, and just camp out. And there were a number of times when we didn't have a scoutmaster, but we still kept a scout troop together and we went down there. And of course, we had some really good times.
That's it.
And, Charlie's pastor has a lot of really good memories for a lot of people in a lot of different ways, because it's a place for kids to go ride their motorcycles a number of years ago and learn how to ride dirt bikes and first one thing or another. And then, of course, Charlie had, I guess, a ranch, Viola. Wouldn't you call it a ranch that he had down there? I mean,
That's where he had all his cows.
that's where he had all his cattle. How many cattle did Charlie have at one time?
33 is what he had.
33? But anyway.
And horses.
Yeah, but we could also go down there when he was ranching that down there. Like she said, he had a cattle guard across it, and you could drive in. It was not restricted or anything. You could go in. The only thing that Charlie asked, you don't go down and shoot one of his cows.
Nancy? I was
Yeah, I
gonna-
remember Cassous. How many, I heard Butch just as I came up about how whenever someone butchered, we shared, and then the next guy who butchered, we shared. Do you remember that everybody went together and bought a bull, and somebody shot that bull?
No.
As a prank, I guess.
It wasn't me.
I didn't do it either.
You remember Mr. Beach?
Oh, yeah.
Beach.
Mr.
We
B.L.
would
Beach.
always
the son
sign
of
his Christmas cards, Beach, the son
Charlie
of the
come in
beach.
one day and he wanted somebody to go help him, one of those cows trying to get around that fence. You know, he fenced that way out in the water where the cows couldn't go around it. One of them decided to go and bogged down. And Charlie come in looking for somebody to help him get that cow out. Well, nobody would go but Mr. Beach. He went with him. They went down there and pried and pulled and run a bunch of ropes out there and drug and finally got that cow up. Well, when she got up, she was mad, boy. Uncle Charlie telling me this. He said, boy, he took off that truck just as hard as he could run. Said he was wide open. And he said, here comes Mr. Beach, run back. He said, that's gratitude for you, Charlie. Coming back to the house.
Yeah, Mr. Beach always said he was the only son of the beach in Port Aransas.
Yeah,
Nancy.
he claimed to be the mayor, the
This
sheriff, and
lady out
everything
here
in St.
asked
Joe
about the cattle.
Right, right.
And there were other cattle down the beach. As you go down 361? You go down 361 on the left-hand side, you'll come across what used to be Mr. Grant's place. And he had an old Indian, cassous, was his man that took care of it. He would come up here and he would get Uncle Charlie and they would go off on horseback. And also there was Mr. Dunn, and I don't remember the other men. Dunn, I got him. And they all had cattle. But as a young girl, little girl, I remember the Bramer bulls, and they ran wild. And when
And Longhorns?
Yeah, I remember the long
Mama, Bramer bulls, those humpback bulls.
Yeah.
And when Mama would send me to the store to get the groceries, which was right around there, I would go from fence to fence to be able to get there because I was so scared of those Bramer bulls. But then you had the Wall Mustangs, and they would come through town. And when they came through town, God help you, because they came, and Gotchi, one of the mean ones, had his ears down. And I was scared to death as a little girl.
We were scared of everything.
I was scared of everything.
When did these horses stop running through town? These are the Mustangs, the wild Mustangs?
The Mustangs.
After
With
the
the-
stock.
And what happened to those Mustangs?
I know that as long as I went to school down there, there was Mustangs and Bramer bulls and all that.
And that-
And we had to walk through a path. We only had a path to walk through from our house here to the school, the little red
Well,
schoolhouse.
does anybody know what happened to the Mustangs?
I don't.
Well,
I
when the stock law
imagine-
went in, they all had to be gathered up, but what happened to them, I don't know.
You don't know who gathered them?
But I remember those horses.
Ooh,
Mary
they
Lee's
were
absolutely
mean.
right. The horses and the cattle and everything would hang out around the schoolyard. And when the bell would ring, everybody'd take off, and Gotchier would come after you if he was close enough.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
was
for the younger people, they're saying, what? This is called Mustang Island for a reason.
Where was the school?
Oh,
Where did how far did they have to walk?
We walked from this house here. We walked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks, say?
Yeah,
5
first snow.
blocks
It's-
from my house. But there was
you know where the
street.
Presbyterian church is? Okay, behind the Presbyterian church, kind of over behind Spanish Village.
We went from here over there to where that Alistair and Robert Street is. We cut across it, and it was Bill Sims' people's house. We cut across there and went up to where Marie's daddy lives now, and the new schoolhouse is, the high school. We went beside Spanish Village, that wasn't there in those days, and then we hit our
It would
schoolhouse.
be like at the end of Avenue A.
And
Yes,
that's the old red
that's-
schoolhouse.
Yes, the haunted house, the Roberts house, yeah, and then Kate's.
Didn't have one there.
So where did the wild Mustangs come from originally?
The wild Mustangs came with the Spaniards when they first came to the island. And my oldest friend since first grade is Eva Ray Mercer, Westmoreland. And the Mercers were the first white people to live on the island. And they ran a life-saving station out here. They also had cattle, sheep, and horses. And then Mr. Dunn or Grant, whichever one it was, I think it was Dunn, I've read the Mercer logs many times, sat with Eva reading. And one passage that I particularly, or one story that I really loved, was a story about everybody chasing the Mustang horses up to this end of the island. So they'd gone all the way down to where there was a pass. Water went through and they couldn't go any farther. They chased those horses all the way up here to corral them because he was going to sell them off. And after they got them up here, the man writing the story said something bit them in the ass, and they all turned around and ran right back down the other way. And he said, and Mr. Dunn was just, he said, I'm too tired, my horse is too tired. we're not gonna do it anymore today. We'll let it go for another day. So that was a Mustang horse story. That's really true.
Who was the haunt?
Yeah, I know, it's good, it's good.
Godfrey's wife probably, because he left all of her clothes hanging in on the porch. You remember, Joyce? You could see her clothes hanging out there.
Yeah.
And then he had that really nasty, mean dog that would bark us up every time we passed.
She was a postmaster.
Yeah,
But-
Godfrey was the postmaster.
Godfrey.
But the
Roberts.
haunt that I saw in his house, after they had left the house and everything, there was nothing there. And out on the porch sat a rocking chair. And I was in a cistern, and we were rolling down the road right here, Churches Street. Yeah, Churches Street, going down that road. And when we finished running, I stopped and looked right there. And there was a cloak, and I swear to God, I saw this, and I've told it to everybody that I know of. And there was a cloaked figure that looked like a Ku Klux Klan, except that it was black instead of white. It was sitting in that chair. It got up and floated through the door into the house. And by this time, I was screaming and running to this house here. I got there to the front door, and Uncle Johnny came out, and Uncle Elmo came out. And they said, "What's the matter with you?" And I said, "There's a ghost in that house." And I tried to tell him. He went over there and went all through there looking to see if there was somebody pulling that on me. To this day, I have no idea who it was, but I know I saw a ghost. No, I never went.
Harold's got the floor.
My grandfather, the one that saw the fish that killed the man, he lived right here. He claims that he took his sloop and took it down the channel. I guess he was in the Gulf, I don't know. But he claims this was in a book called Blazes of Gold. I don't remember the author.